Hi, this is LeAura Alderson with Boomers Reinvented, and we have a great guest today that I discovered online because she has a fantastic website called VivaFifty, and it's Lorraine Ladish, and she's a bilingual author of 17 books. She's a writer, editor, speaker, and social media influencer, and she's the founder of VivaFifty, which is a bilingual community that celebrates being 50 plus. And so, of course, that's what we're all about at Boomers Reinvented. It's about making the second half of our life the best. And if anyone's doing it, Lorraine is. So I'm looking forward to meeting her along with you today. So welcome, Lorraine.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you. It's always fun to meet new people, and especially at our age, as you just said.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, so what year were you born, or when is your birth date?
My birthday is August 25, 1963. Well, actually, my birthday coming up will be August 25, but I was born in 63.
Excellent.
So I guess that makes me one of the last boomers.
Yeah, you're one of the babies of the baby boomers. Good. Well, you have an amazing story. I was so enjoying reading your site, and we'll make sure to post a link so people can visit all the wonderful sites that you have, the books that you've read. And I was looking at your books on Amazon. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish. They all seem to be in Spanish. Are any of them in English? Do you have any?
No, and the reason is because I started writing when I lived in Spain. I mean, I started publishing when I lived in Spain, so it just made sense to write in Spanish. And then being half American, I moved to the States 10 years ago, and I still, continued writing there. And so most of my books are in Spanish and other languages that I don't speak, like Portuguese. There's Catalan in Spain. There's some other languages, but not English. And my next book is in English, so okay. I am excited.
That makes sense. Okay, so were you born in Spain?
I was born in Spain actually not by accident, but my dad is Spanish. My mother's from Pittsburgh, and my dad studied in Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. And so he wanted to have a daughter born in Spain, so they traveled there for that, had me, and then came back to the States.
So are you a dual citizen?
Yes. And that is something I not only am very, very grateful to my dad for that, but when I had my own kids, I made sure to do that for them too, because it is a great asset to have.
Definitely. So you grew up in a bilingual family?
Yes.
Okay. Did your dad speak Spanish as well?
Well, here's the thing. My dad is Spanish, but if you hear him speak English, you would never know that. Mm-hmm. And the reason also being that he came to the States when he was 16, and he basically, taught himself English, but he studied in English. He got a PhD, and he became a professor. And at 21, or 22, he was already teaching. So when we went back to Spain to live, so that I would continue being bilingual after we got there when I was 6, one day he said to us, we're going to stop speaking Spanish because that was a language of choice between us when we lived in the States. And from now on, we're going to speak in English. To this day, I cannot speak in Spanish to my dad. And he is Spanish. Yes, I cannot. It's like, I can't. It's our language. Even if there are people in front, I will address him in English and I will translate.
Wow.
But I cannot address him in Spanish and he cannot address me in Spanish. It's that way.
So is it that way because that's the habit, or because he doesn't understand now if you address him in Spanish?
Oh my goodness, no, he's perfectly bilingual. No, first of all, he'd kill me. My dad is a lexicographer. He is an expert in linguistics. He's written a number of dictionaries, and I have to say that he is very strict with languages. And this, which makes me feel kind of a failure because I'm not being as successful in teaching my kids to be bilingual. He not only did he make my younger sister and I bilingual, like completely, where we read, speak. I might have an accent when I speak, but I read, speak, translate both, and it doesn't matter. I can do both just as well. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, when I hesitate, I'm looking for a word maybe in Spanish or vice versa. But then I have 2 younger brothers and sisters who were born of a different mother. And they are completely Spanish by blood, nationality, and everything. And my dad taught them English against their will. And that is something I admire in him a lot. So
he sounds like a very resolved and determined.
Yes. He is. But now my niece, who is, she's 9, and she's my youngest sister's daughter. Again, she's half Spanish. I mean, she's Spanish Argentinian from her dad's side. Again, she lives in Spain. She was born in the States, but she lives there. She has really zero reasons to speak English in her environment. My dad has taught her English, and she sent my daughters a letter in English that I was blown away by. She was perfectly articulate in writing, and yeah. Excellent. So languages are very important. Really, they are.
Yeah, well, I remember it's on your site, and I hope people will go to the site. It's a wonderful picture of your dad writing typewriter.
Yes.
Yeah. He published his first book the year you were born. So yes. It was really sweet to hear the story of how you were born, not only to a father who's a writer, but a grandfather and a grandmother who are storytellers. I love the story about your grandfather is abuelo. Abuelo is how he would write notes on scraps of paper that he would then lose, and how he interviewed himself for his own books.
And the funny thing, he was very eccentric, and he would interview himself, but you have to understand that what he said about himself was grandiose. Yeah. He would describe himself as the artist with his tousled hair and the great linguist, and back then I thought it was ridiculous, but now I look back and I think, wow, he was a very interesting character.
Yeah, definitely. What a colorful family, and wonderful stories to share, and wonderful memories too, but clearly part of the legacy of who you are. Now, speaking of which, to move more into that, your site, so VivaFifty, how did that come to be, and how long have you had that?
Okay, so VivaFifty as such has been around for a year, but I started it in January of 2014, and it was basically a personal blog then. It didn't look the way it looks now. The thing is that for the past 4 years prior to that, I had been in the Latina blogosphere and in the public line. And I was the editor-in-chief, the managing editor at different times of different publications. So I have always worked for myself, and being a writer, I know what it takes, to write in solitude and not see results and just keep, going on and keeping on. So what happened is that, of course, the online world is it's tricky. And by working for other people, I realized that, wow, I put my heart into this. And I was the editor-in-chief of a Latina mom site, and I was a face of it. And I really enjoyed what I was doing. But then the owner had different ideas for this site that did not really match the way that I wanted to keep on going professionally. So I realized, wow, if I don't do my own thing, I'm never going to be in charge. Yeah. So I thought, since I've always written about what was going on in my life and what I'm passionate about, at that moment, well, it was turning 50, and realizing that I wanted to break the stereotype that you have to cut your hair at 50, that you have to dress a certain way, that you're too old to do things, that life is over. And I have not found a site in Spanish or bilingual that addresses the issues that we deal with. In English, there's a lot of information, but in Spanish, there was not. So I decided that I wanted to fill that gap. And I hope I'm doing it, or I'm trying.
Excellent. And I'm glad, because I have some friends that are Latina. They're from anywhere from South America to Mexico. And I would like to share your sites with them. Do you have any sites or do you do any writing for, or maybe you could recommend sites for under 50 as well? Well, I know that actually VivaFifty has, the articles span the ages, don't they often?
Well, yes. And I realized that actually younger people read me when I go to speak at conferences about how I handle my social media, how I do my business. And younger women have come up to me to say, thank you for doing this. We read you because you're helping us not be afraid of getting older. Yes. So then I was wowed by, so younger people are reading. So then I also give tips on what to do, not only, beauty-wise, but in all aspects of life, to make sure that you arrive in your 50s with good self-confidence, with a certain number of things accomplished, or, at least enjoying it instead of being afraid.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll definitely recommend your site to them as well. And I think that that's a good point, that the Spanish speaking world is often underserved online. I think I've heard that from some friends relative to books as well. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of things come out, it takes a while sometimes for them to be translated.
Yes, that's true. Then there's another thing that I'm finding, managing a bilingual and bicultural site, which I think is more important because I don't translate everything. I
Right.
realize that because culturally we're different, just every culture. So maybe an article that does really well in English, I might translate it, but it doesn't serve the other community.
Mm.
For example, in a post we had about making friends in midlife and beyond did really well in English. Well, it tanked in Spanish, and we just were even saying, what is wrong with the friends I already have? And I guess what happens is that in the Latino community, people stay put for most of their life. They don't need to go out there and find new friends. Whereas the Anglo community is more nomadic and more adventurous, perhaps. And so I say we because I belong to both of them. I have been nomadic all my life, so I do make new friends, and I need to.
Yeah.
So that is also the case, that what is culturally relevant in one language might not resonate so much. So that might be another reason.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, and I think that that gives you some market research, to let you know some of the things, because then you could also, because here's the thing, I think that there are many non-Latino speaking people who could identify with having the same family circles. Really, that could be an article area that it would be interesting to experiment, writing an article toward the Latina community and and then translating to English and seeing how, if there's a resonation with that.
Yes, and in fact, I've done it, and it is interesting to see what the ideas, even something as simple as beauty. The other day I posted a video on the Facebook page of VivaFifty, and the Spanish-speaking Latinas were telling me I'm too pale, I should put color on my lips, what the heck is wrong with me, why didn't I cut my hair? Which I don't take personally, it's a cultural thing. So, it's just interesting to see how the different communities react to what you put out there.
So is that cultural thing, was it so much about how you looked, or is it more the inclination to judge another person, how they...
Oh, both.
Okay.
I remember, it's just a thing that happens. I'm not so used to it living in the United States anymore, but if you're in Spain, for example, people will come up to you and friends say, oh my goodness, you look awful, or you've aged so much. What is wrong with you? And it's normal. Now I think I've lost that. If somebody says that to me, I'd be so taken aback but there it's normal. They will say anything to you, to your face, and you're supposed to deal with it.
Well, so I guess it could be a refreshing honesty, as long as it's not, if it's not intended maliciously, but, or like...
Well, I don't know. I'm not used to it anymore, so it does take me aback. And even my own family will do it. And I know they don't do it out of a bad place in their heart, but I actually feel... I think more relieved to not have to live with that every day. I don't need people telling me how terrible I look when I already am critical with myself. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of critical with yourself, I'm going to go back in time just a little bit, because I did notice that one of the books that you've written had to do with earlier struggles with bulimia, and I have had that in my past as well. So I was interested in hearing your story of that, what you went through and how you got out of it.
Well, okay, how I got out of it, I always tell people that I don't really know. Okay. I might be one of the, smaller percentage that they say gets better spontaneously, I suppose. I battled with it for too many years, almost 2 decades. Yeah. So that's a long time. Yeah. And of course, the harder part was when I was in my teens at around 16, which is when it started. And it was poor self-image, control issues. Who knows? I have an addictive personality. And because of a comment someone made about my thighs, like, oh my goodness, your thighs are so fat. And then looking back, I've always been on the thin side. I was not fat. I wasn't overweight. I was normal. I was just growing. But I also grew up watching my elders, my stepmother, my grandmother, who's still alive at 98. But they were very concerned with their weight. And so I, followed suit and went on diets, and I would exercise for pleasure, and then suddenly it became something that wasn't so pleasurable. From one day to the next, after I started a diet, I went from being a normal kid with their normal, ups and downs, to being in a full-blown eating disorder mode at a time when nobody knew what that was, and even less in Spain, which is where I was living at the time. So I would buy, I was in the throes of just, being completely aware of my body and the way I looked. I hated myself. I would physically hurt myself. I was depressed. I would take myself to the doctor. At least I had that self-awareness, and explain, I have no idea, there's something very wrong with me, but I don't know how to fix it. And I said, I think I have bulimia, because I would buy American magazines and read that. There was no internet. But the doctors in Spain would say, no, what is that? You don't have that. You're depressed. And they would give me amphetamines, and they would put me on diets, which of course is the last thing I needed. And so I struggled with that for many years, but I somehow managed to stay functional. So I became an aerobics instructor back then, when, Jane Fonda and the leggings and the not proper shoes. And so I did that in an attempt to keep my eating disorder in check, which of course didn't happen. But in the meantime, I continued to write, because my family are writers and all that. So at 29, when I really wanted to make a living writing, I wanted to publish. And I wanted to write fiction, but nothing would come out. No fiction was coming out of my brain or my inspiration. So I realized that the story that was crying to be told was my struggle with bulimia. And especially because back then, in the country I was living at, there was really very little knowledge about that. So I actually did it, and that was my, maybe, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, to this day, 21 years later, it's still my best-selling book. And the title is Me siento gorda, which is I feel fat. Yeah. Because obviously I was not, but I felt that way. And I think whether we are or we are not, a lot of women have that image in their heads, which is really a way of saying, I don't like myself, I hate myself.
Yeah. It takes such a toll on the health as well. I don't know if you had any of the diagnosis of bone density loss, for instance, but that's one of the side effects of long-term bulimia. But you look amazing today. So what are you doing for your health and your fitness today? Because you look amazing, you look fit, your skin looks awesome. So what are some of your beauty tips that you could share?
Well, and this is one of the first posts I had on VivaFifty, which is 7 beauty habits to do throughout your lifetime to look good at 50 or 50 some. And for my whole life, even though I was definitely abusing my body with the eating disorder, but throughout my life, I have always practiced sports, always. So I'm still a runner. I exercise loosely 3 times a week, so I'm not an exercise freak anymore. But I will do whatever. I'm not regimented, but I always wash my face every night, every single night. I've been using moisturizer on my skin every day since I was 13. Every day. And that's a lot of times throughout the years. Right. I drink a lot of water. I sleep a lot. Even when I had my kids, even when my kids were babies, I would find ways to sleep. And now that my kids are teens and tweens, I had them later in life. So I still tell them, mommy needs to sleep for 2 hours. Yeah. They respect that because they know I need it.
Yeah. So how many kids do you have?
I have 2 biological and 1 stepson. Okay. So they're 14 almost, my eldest. 11 is the boy who's turning 12, who's my stepson. And then my youngest, who is turning 11.
Excellent. So do they all live with you?
Yes. So we're a family of 5 and the dog. And I co-parent with my ex-husband as well, who I get along with. Not as a a couple, but as friends and co-parents, and then with my current husband, and so we're a quirky family, but we make it work.
And your current husband is also an author, right?
Mm-hmm. He is also multicultural, and we met when we were 45. I think I was 45 or 46, and he's a year younger. And he, I think it's interesting because we met at an age where a lot of people are really, really jaded because we've been through a lot, and a lot of people, even in their 30s, don't want to even hear about having a relationship. Now, we met by real serendipity. And again, we're both bilingual. We're both multicultural. We are both, now I'm almost 52. He's 1 year younger. And we have kids the same age, which is crazy because he could have a 30-year-old, or I could. And, but so all these things, kind of came together, and we appreciate what we have so much. We've been together for 6 years, it's going to be now. And we know that we had to go through what we had to go through before for this to work. That if we had met 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, this might not have worked.
Yeah.
So
everything has its own time and season. And so that makes a lot of sense. And, as we grow and mature, there's so many things I know I would do differently if I had it to do over. And yet, there's always the thing about if I had made different choices, then I also wouldn't be quite who I am today. So, it's just.
Look, if I hadn't met my now ex-husband, I wouldn't be in Florida because I moved here because of him. Yeah. We met in Spain, but, because of his work, and we came here, and, so everything, the kids I have wouldn't be the way they are. Everything. My own daughter, who's, as I said, she's turning 14 soon. She was telling me, wow, all these things had to happen for Phil and you, my current husband, to meet, that if you hadn't done this and that and the other. And I was like, wow, now that's insightful at 14,
Yeah, love that. So how did you meet?
Well, we have a common friend who had a restaurant in in Naples, Florida, where I used to live. And, well, of course, she knew my story, and she knew that I was separated, and, I was having a hard time. I actually went through really dire straits in that time. And so Phil was he was divorced already. And he was a photojournalist at the time. Then he reinvented his career and is now full-time writing. But so he used to work for the New York Times and big publications like that, which he thinks is nothing, but I think is a big deal. Yeah. And so he was on assignment. He lives in Sarasota. And so he stopped for tapas at her restaurant. And she said, after talking to him, she's very nice and likes to mingle with people. She wrote him and said, on Facebook, I've met this guy, and he's, wow, I just think you're perfect for each other and you should meet. Wow. So we did. And, but first we met by email on Facebook, and then he came down to visit me. There's an hour and a half, an hour 45 drive. So we talked on the phone, and he came down to visit, and we hit it off from that moment.
Wow. Yeah. It seems like it was definitely meant to be.
I mean, really, if I had at some point made a list of the traits that I would like in a potential partner. And of course, I don't know whether I really believe that would happen, but I even threw in bilingual, and
you're making your list.
It happened. Yeah. It happened. And, so I don't know. And still, I'm at that point in life where you're like, wow, is this going to, I don't want to say, is this going to last? But, so many things can happen. Your friends have diseases, people die, and oh my God, certain person met the love of her life. And then, so I'm, I have sometimes this kind of fear that things are so good that I, what knocking on wood, praying, whatever I can do but that's life.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, that's life. So tell us a little bit more about your site, if you would. It's basically only about a year old. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
How did you said it's been redesigned from your original blog into more of an aggregate authority sort of magazine site. Mm-hmm. It's really a beautiful design. So did you come up with that yourself, or how did you create that?
Well, I have to say the logo was, first of all, a drawing on a napkin that my husband did. He went to art school aside from being a photographer. So he designed that. But then I had a professional actually do the logo, and we went back and forth with it. I wanted it to be something that depicted, I love sunflowers, and that's the flower. And I the play of words, the Viva and the word in English 50. And, so that's how that happened. I went into business with my husband. So now we have VivaFifty Media, limited liability company.
Oh, nice.
So that is, it is a business, and we treat it as such. I think the aesthetics are terribly important. So I put a lot of effort into making it look good, and for the content to be good, to be informative, or something that is so heartfelt that nobody else but that writer could have done that.
Right.
And it's a big effort really that we put into it, but it's actually paying off. Now we're what I would call a micro business, because I've already worked at big websites and I know exactly what goes on there. And the problem with a humongous website is that it also has humongous overheads.
Right.
So if you stay small, and since I really do have multiple skills and I understand social media, I'm bilingual, I'm an editor, I'm a writer, I think I have a little bit of an eye for aesthetics, and I work really, really hard. So I realized, well, I can do a lot of things and keep my budget small so I can grow. Right. So I have to say that I recently went to a conference where I was explaining, how to turn yourself from a journalist without work to a successful entrepreneur. And for me, my success, the way I quantify it, is that in the past year, I replaced my income from being the editor-in-chief for somebody else. Yeah. That for me is success.
Excellent. So are you how many writers do you have contributing?
25,
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I have, I've been around in the online world, managing websites, as I said, for 4 or 5 years. So I know a lot of writers in both languages, and I've worked with them, so I can, and then there are people who write to me asking whether they can contribute. And now a big question is always, do you pay? Because that's what people want to know.
Right.
Yes, it's like a give and take, I will give packages to certain writers, and this is what you'll do, and this is what I'll give you. And then, if we have branded content, then we could talk about that. We also do a lot of social media activations, and we help brands connect with the readers that we have, and it's a work in progress.
Right. It's a media business, like you said.
Yes, it is. It is.
It's definitely a media business. So are your 25 writers, are they all freelance or?
Yes, all of them. But then I have the advantage that I'm a writer, my husband's a writer, my sister's a writer, my dad's a writer. So yeah. they also write for me.
Definitely. That's wonderful. So are you still accepting applications for new writers?
Yes, always. I think that is something that one should have, is not only be open to that, but again, as I have connections in the Hispanic or in the, online media. So if somebody is not a fit for me, or, I will introduce them to maybe a site that pays a lot more, or, it's just a matter of, if I see something that is very good, I'll either take it or I will point them in the right direction. That's for sure.
Do you do all the translations yourself, or is that shared then?
Well, I don't translate everything, as I said before, because I don't think it translates well. So it depends. I also have freelance translators I've worked with before. So, some things are written directly in Spanish and we never translate into English, and vice versa. So that changes. I think it's more of an organic way that we're doing it than, this has to be this way, this has to be that way.
Right. Is it, if it's not too private, no, for you to share what you would pay writers if they're interested in writing, if there's a range? Or?
Well, that depends. That I don't have right now. I can tell you this: the average online is $100 per post. That's the average. There are a lot of big sites that don't pay at all. And when I started 5 years ago, I was making $300, $400, sometimes $500 per post for websites. Wow. Now that's changed a lot.
Yeah.
So I work again with writers I've already worked with for that reason, because I am usually opening doors for them in other places. And so we're kind of, networking together. And, but it's not, the thing is that online now, and I think writers have to understand this, is that there is no longer the value of, oh, you're a big name and here's my piece and that's that. The writer also has to provide not only excellent writing that does not take a ton of any editor's time to be correcting, because, otherwise I'll write it myself.
Right.
And then that they need to provide value online. They need to bring you page views or their community or something. So I still write for other outlets and I enjoy it tremendously. But since I have been on both sides of the fence, I understand the value that when I'm proposing to write for a site, I need to tell them, well, I have 41,000 followers on Twitter and I have my community on Facebook and this is what I can bring you, this traffic or this engagement or something. Online is very different from print.
Right. So one of the things that I really enjoy about having websites and writing articles is being able to share with the world. I mean, it's such an amazing thing to realize. And in particular, if you're inclined to be a sharing person, it's sort of like the one that wants to call up the friend and say, you should look at this. This will help you with this. Or, go check out. It's so funny, that whatever it may be, always trying to find solutions for people. And it's like, the internet gives us an opportunity to shout that out in a bigger way. So I would imagine that you're a lot like that as well, that you love sharing yourself with others and teaching. Is that true?
Of course. That's how I've lived my whole life.
Yeah.
I think my family doesn't like that. They're more private. But the thing is, today, like when I started Facebook years ago, I started it out as a way to keep in touch with friends and family. Now I use it more than LinkedIn to keep in touch with colleagues. And just today, I started realizing, wow, I have all this, insight about having been an editor, about doing my own business, about being self-motivated and a self-employed person for my whole life.
Yeah.
As literally, I have never had a 9-to-5 job ever.
Wonderful.
And for me, that's just the way I am. That's success, because I have been able to make it for 52 years, like that, almost 52. So the whole point is that, like, I'll post stuff on Facebook now without even going to a blog for that. And I don't get paid for that. I just tell people what I know and hope that it will help them.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, if you have that knowledge, why not share it?
Yeah. So what are the things that most excite you today? Do you have any new projects, or is it putting yourself into your website? I know that's the thing, right? You get into this world of ideas and it's full.
Well, I'll tell you this. My problem, I think, is I have too many ideas and I need to rein it in. Like I also like to draw. So I want to draw. Last year I wanted to make jewelry. So I have to say, stop it and just focus on this. I have 2 books waiting to be edited, but really, I mean, the draft is done, the first rough draft.
Wonderful.
My husband has edited it for me, and it's a fun book. It's a novel about when I was down and out with zero money after the recession, and I took up direct sales because I couldn't make a living. And so it's a fun book, though. It's funny. And then I have another book called Latin Spice for a Balanced Life, about how Latinos incorporate certain things into life, to make it, spicier, snappier. But so I have to just find the time and sit down and do that. And then, of course, continue, I'm getting opportunities by admitting my age that I would not get. Yeah. So I urge all women really to, instead of, one of the reasons that I started VivaFifty was because I found it so hard to see my peers saying, well, I'm whatever, I'm 57, I'm 30 some, I'm 50 or 40, and I can't say it because I won't get work.
Yes.
Well, I'm okay. I know that I won't get certain things for saying how old I am, but I will get others. Yes. So I am very excited about upcoming conferences, speaking engagements, videos. I'm doing a lot of things to represent women who do not want to be classified as old after a certain age. So continuing VivaFifty, raising my children.
Excellent.
Of course, to go to high school and all these things and hopefully be successful, which to me, success just means putting them on the right track, being good people, and whatever they do is fine with me. Help my husband promote his novels, and keep on living.
So, yeah, that's amazing. I can so identify with all that you just shared. And I really think, I mean, I'm glad you're going to be doing some of the video projects and what have you, because you could totally be a model, a spokesmodel.
Oh my goodness.
No, seriously, for boomers and beyond, you really should do. I mean, I think there's a big need, because my vision of boomers essentially, and you know, the grandma and aging,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's, you know, let us be as we are in the health that we are, you know, fit and vibrant at 90, at 100. And why not? You know, it's, of course, things are going to be failing and things will change, but they don't have to change so drastically. You know, it's because we forget to care for our body, you know, and to use it as it's meant to be used through movement. But if we're exercising regularly, most of us put more attention into caring for our home than our body. And yet our bodies is the home to our soul. And if we want to continue a life that's charged up and revved up and, you know, revealing of all that's possible, then we have to take care of it.
I agree. And, you know, one of the things my grandmother, my abuelita in Spain, she's 98.
Yeah.
She's in really good shape. If you talked to her on the phone, you would never know. She sounds 70 some maybe. And my father, he's very fit and he does not look his age, which I'm not going to say because if he sees this, he will kill me twice. But he recently had heart problems and had open heart surgery, which is very shocking to all of us, very, very recently. Mm. But one of the things the doctors told him is that what he had in his favor is that he does not look his age. He is fit. He is healthy other than his valves and all this. He didn't have a heart attack per se. But so they told him the fact that you are fit and slim has saved your life. Yeah. So I told my friends, you know, this is another reason for me to put my sneakers on and run out. I've run half marathons, and right now, because I did injure myself for overtraining for one of them, and I have problems on one of my hips. Well, I'm not going to run more half marathons because I don't need to prove anything to anybody. I'm just going to keep running because I enjoy it. Right. And I realize, as you just said, that, well, if that hurts, it hurts. So let's take care of it, but let's continue, you know, taking care of our bodies. And then there are things beyond our control, you know, accidents, what have you, things that can happen. But there is a lot we can do about our bodies and our mental health as well.
Definitely. And even adapt. So for instance, if you have hip or knee or whatever problems from running, then, you know, you haven't already, I really love biking, and biking can be a lot gentler on the joints, and yet still a great activity. Of course, walking. And so you might try, you know, just from a fitness standpoint, they have proven, or studies have shown that a lot of times marathons can actually be hard on the heart. They did a study of men 50 and over who did marathons, and then those who didn't. And those who were doing marathons actually had scar tissue on their heart after a certain period, whereas those who did not, did not. So, you know, something to keep in mind. So it's good that, you know, you don't need to push yourself to a marathon, but then to apply that energy toward, you know, the resistance training or the weights or the occasional high interval training, you know, where you can do some running, racing, sprints, especially. I don't know, do you live close to the beach?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love walking up and down, just walking up and down, you know, in the morning or at night. So yes. Yeah,
that's wonderful. So yeah, definitely to keep that up is really helpful. But back to your husband for a minute. So he has just written a book, Solfito. Is that
Solfito? Yes. Wow. You're a good researcher. Yeah.
Well, and I was inspired because it looked like it's just coming out.
It is. It's a novel about a Cuban family who lives in New York, and because they're, you know, business, they're risking losing everything. And one of the protagonist has to go back to Cuba to recover a recipe, and it takes place years ago. So there was no, you know, internet, and I've actually helped him with the reading of the galleys, the proofs that are, you know, ready to go to print. And I've taken care a little bit of the Spanish part. I have to say, I admire him as a writer. He's a way better writer than I am. And the story is very engaging. So yes, it's coming out in May.
Excellent. So is he self-publishing or going through a traditional?
No, we're very, very happy because he has taken all the rejections in the book, and he's still standing. And that's what it takes to be an author, really, is if you really want to be published by somebody else, you have to, still stand after rejections. And so Cinco Puntos is the press that is publishing his book, and I'm really excited for him. And after having seen him all these years, and even before I met him, he was already working on the book, and he's having another one coming out presently as well.
So that's amazing. So,
yes.
writing family. So, and your 2 books and his, are you guys both going through publishers? Have you considered self-publishing?
Well, I've never self-published, not because I just believe that I, shoot for the stars. And if that doesn't work out, then you can always fall back on. So that was my take always. So even when I published novels, which is way harder to publish because there's always a market for nonfiction if you have a good idea, and you can always do it with a proposal in the States. But I published 2 novels, and they are not self-published either, and it was really hard to publish them, but it wasn't impossible. So what I am considering, though, is doing a series maybe of ebooks for VivaFifty that will be shorter, and perhaps even based on books I have already written, and based on the interests of the readers of the site. And then we will probably sell them on our site. Excellent. And downloadable, easy to read. Yeah. But I will still continue working for others because, writing with publishers, because I believe that there is still something. When you go with a publisher, big or small, there is a whole process of editing, quality control. That is something that I believe that a lot of people who self-publish do not understand, that needs to be there for their book to be considered and read.
Yeah, it's laborious. My husband has actually just published his first novel.
Ooh, congratulations.
Yeah, in fact, we're launching it this week and next week, this month. And it is self-published through Base and Amazon Kindle, but he had a professional editor and professional the copyright writers, the copy editors that read and format and all of that, and it really made a huge difference. So yeah, it's an interesting process. I know there are a lot of professional or some of the more famous marketers. I'm sure you're familiar with Guy Kawasaki and Gary.
Yes, of course.
They're big on self-publishing these days because when you go the traditional route, of course, you already have to have the fan base anyway. You have about 50,000 followers or fans anyway for them to even look at you if you're not already, credentialed in an arena that has that kind of attention. And you get such a small percentage. But, if you're already doing it as you have been for so many years, then it's like a pipeline. It's it's an easier thing.
No, you're absolutely right. And this is one thing that we didn't have before, which was, again, remember, like when I started publishing, that was 21 years ago. Right. There was no internet or really. There was small vanity publishers, but there was not this, all these opportunities that you have. And I absolutely agree. What I mean is that, for example, when I've worked as a journalist as well, and I remember people would send, and they still send me books to review. If I open the book and there are spelling mistakes and obvious mistakes in the first few pages, that's what I think discourages people from reviewing self-published books. So really the biggest factor there is the quality control, as you were saying. So if you do have an editor, if you do understand that you need to put out a quality product, then your potential for making money is way higher, of course.
Yeah. Definitely. So when you go through a book process, so like you said, you have two that are ready to publish.
Well, they still have to go through the, all the self-editing and all this. For me, it's, it takes a long time to actually write a book. So are you going to ask, like, what am I going to do with them?
Well, I'm going to ask you.
Like, how am I going to try and get them published?
No, I was going to ask if it was too soon to talk about the titles and what they're about, but if it's too soon.
No, actually, no. Well, one of them is called The Party Plan, and that's the one about this single mom, as Woody Allen said once, loosely based on myself. So she starts in direct sales, and I think, it's something, every time there's this verbiage in direct sales that when somebody I know has not talked to me in a long time and says, oh, I've been thinking about you, man, I know they're going to sell me something, right? So, so there's a whole culture there that I did not know. And direct sales, which is not my passion in life, but it saved my life as a single mom for a short time. Mm-hmm. And I tried different things, and so it's a humorous take on the woman who tries different, the creams don't work, so then she goes to sell jewelry, and then she goes to sell clothes, and then because I think people do that. Oh, this product is not the one. Let me go try another one, and then you're gonna get rich. And then, so it's a humorous, as I said, a chick lit book. Really, it doesn't have any more aspirations than that. Yeah, than to entertain.
Do you have a title for it?
The Party Plan.
I'm sorry, you said that. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, good. And the other one, is it also fiction or well?
No, the other one is nonfiction, and it is Latin Spice for a Balanced Life.
Okay, good. All right. So, and but are the links already, or is it already loaded on Amazon, or is it?
No. Those are not even like in the. I mean, I don't care talking about them because because they'll come out one way or another. But yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing with your platform, VivaFifty. At some point, you may see that. I mean, there's no replacing Amazon as a platform for traffic for books. Mm-hmm. But as you build your site, you'll be able to give them that platform as well for recognition and exposure, so that they don't get also lost, in queue at Amazon.
Yeah. No, but I still think. I mean, if you go the way like, I don't know, like. I only have 2 titles that I recommend of my own that I recommend on the site. And it is only because they are super connected with what I'm doing on VivaFifty. One of them is De los 40 para arriba, disfruta de la vida, which is after 40, enjoy life, with a play of words in Spanish. And the other one is Volver a empezar, which is starting over, which is, finding love in life again when you're older and all that. So those 2 are kind of tied into what VivaFifty is about. So they're the only 2 that I actually have listed on the website.
That makes sense. Speaking of your website again for a minute, from a business standpoint, as one who's aspiring and learning, is your biggest profit center for your site ads? Would it be AdSense?
No, that is the smallest.
Okay.
That's by far. Yes. So here's the thing that I consider, like, VivaFifty Media is one thing, and then VivaFifty is a brand. VivaFifty, I would be another brand, Lorraine Ladish, and so the revenue comes from sponsored content, ambassadorships with brands. For example, I'm just starting one with Transitions lenses because I wear I need corrective lenses, and so this seemed like a perfect partnership. Sponsored content again, social media. I do a lot of social media activations where I will host or co-host Twitter parties, and that brings in a lot more sometimes than the writing, which I find kind of sad because really I started out as an author and a writer. But the reality is that social media brings in a good chunk of money if you have invested the time and the effort to put yourself out there and become an influencer. Right. So those, I think, are the 2 main ones. And then writing for and speaking engagements and videos and things like that.
Yeah, well, it seems like you've been able to translate your aspirations, your writer self and writer aspirations into a different medium, because writing is about expressing oneself and sharing thoughts and ideas and concepts. And you're doing that in a different way as a social influencer.
Well, the thing is, I was hit by, like a lot of people, by the recession in 2008, and I was really a print person, and I was writing for I was going to say something. I was working as a journalist, writing for print media. So, we all know what happened, right? So print media goes, a lot of them go under, and there's nothing happening and all that. And somehow I stumbled onto online, and I was a single mom on food stamps. I went from being a middle class, woman, an author, and to having zero. And I didn't even know that food stamps existed until a friend of mine told me to apply. And I thought, that's for poor people. And then I thought, heck, I'm poor. I have no food in the fridge.
Wow.
So what happened was that I had already started a blog in 2006 when I came to the States in 2004. So anyway, I started a blog. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I did it for a long time without getting a penny out of it. And then luck had it that somebody asked me to do some coupon things, like little blog posts about coupons without putting my name on it. And they were paying me $15 per post, which is obviously nothing to me right now in terms of what you can make online. But I did it because I had to feed my kids. And the next thing I knew, I was, hustling online, figuring out what SEO meant, how to, do this, I had no, when this guy told me, you need to optimize the post for SEO, I had no idea what that was.
Right.
So now I can talk to you about SEO, about content, about how to do social media engagement, how to grow your followers, but this has taken me, necessity was what made me do that. And then I realized that my mind was wired for online. And, I did it out of sheer survival. I had no idea I was going to be good at it. I had no idea whether it gave money or not. And I discovered it did.
Yeah. Excellent. What a wonderful success story. I remember you were talking about in one of your articles, a speaking, I'm not sure which side it was, but you were on a speaking engagement and it was a hard thing to do because you were awaiting news on a health issue with your family. Was that your father's situation?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you said, but I didn't get to finish the article. It said in there that you somehow discovered the kindness of humans from that. Do you remember that article about where someone?
I do, and there's actually a video. If you click on the video, where in LA recently at We All Grow Summit, which is a news summit for content creators, by Ana Flores, a Latina I admire tremendously. They flew me there. I was sponsored by a brand, by Dove, and by Vive Mejor, an online publication, to fly there and tell my story. And my story is, how they say that women don't help other women, and especially amongst Latinas, that Latinas don't help others. Well, when I was single and single mom, zero money, I really couldn't pump gas. I was depressed, and some days I couldn't get out of bed. It was hard, but even then, I would go to this dance studio on Fridays to, get my mind off of my really daily, very big struggles. And so one night, an acquaintance, after I had sold absolutely all my family heirlooms that were, examples I gave were the ring that my grandfather was wearing the day he died, things that my daughters were given when they were born, with their names on them, my wedding bands, everything, a lot of memories. I had to sell them to pay the rent. And as I handed everything over to the jeweler, for him it was a very nice man, but for him, well, of course, he put a price tag on all that. But for me, as I handed over each thing, it was a part of my family's history. And my little girl, who was then 4, she was just playing around in the jewelry shop, not knowing what her mom was doing.
Right.
And so an acquaintance at the dance studio asked me how I was doing, and I told her that I had sold all my family's heirlooms. And she said, "Did they give you good money?" I had no idea. I said, "I paid the rent with it." So she, who I consider an acquaintance, asked me to follow her home and that she had something for me. And when I did that, really late at night, I had never been at her house. She came out and gave me 2 sets of rings, engagement rings and wedding rings of her 2 failed marriages. Aww. And told me that she had been waiting to give this to somebody, and she didn't know the right person, and that person was me.
Wow.
I've cried so much already about that story. That,
I know, it's so beautiful.
So when she did that, I cried then, and I recently told, when I was practicing for saying that, telling my story on stage, I told it in front of my daughter, who's now 11. The one who was 4 is now almost 11. And she said, Mommy, I didn't know any of that.
Right.
They're going to love it. And that made me think, wow. So she had no idea what I was going through, which is great. Right. But then there are
all that.
Yeah. But then, I did accept the rings because I was a mom and I needed the money. I sold them and I paid the next month's rent. And then I worked like crazy to figure out, okay, so, going the regular route of knocking on doors to get jobs that I'm not going to get is not working. So how do I reinvent myself? And the answer kind of came through other people, and they took me online. Yeah. So I do believe in people. I do believe in giving information, because other people have given me things to move forward and help me. And, there's so much good in life that we just have to look for it.
Yeah. There's the quote, the more you give, the more you have.
Yeah. And the thing is that sometimes we don't know what we're giving. The day that I told that story on stage, and, somebody, the photographer of the event, came over and said to me, I have this old watch from my great-great-great-grandfather. Now I see it in a completely different way. Because at the end of that, I was explaining how, that's actually why, people who know me in person, I wear jewelry that is silver. I don't wear gold anymore. And even my engagement ring and my wedding ring, this ring was $250 engagement, and this one wasn't even $100, my wedding ring. I refuse to wear anything expensive on, I'd rather spend it on my kids and take them places. And I don't know. It's just that, and I don't judge anybody who does otherwise. It's just that what I had to let go of was so big that, I realized that there are so many other important things in life, but it taught me a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Definitely. Yeah. Those, and help to make you, again, like we said earlier, who you are today. And I think able to better identify and empathize with others.
Well, not only that is, one of the things that I believe, if you try to put a front out there like you're perfect and nothing bad ever happened to you, how are people going to
connect or relate?
Bad moment in my life. And I want to be able to stay humble enough that I will really remember every single one of those moments, because you really never know when somebody's going through a bad day, a bad time.
Right.
And even if you can't actively, give them money, but you can give them understanding or patience, and then there's also the power that there is in having overcome something and say, I've been there, I got out of it, so can you.
Right. Definitely. So do you have a vision board? Do you work with vision board?
I've used them. So let's say that how could I say this? I have the vision in my head.
That's good.
Now that I'm so busy.
Yeah.
That would be one more thing to do. I do try to keep a focus, and I've used vision boards. I've used gratitude lists. I've done a number of things. Visualization, I think, is terribly important. But right now, right this second, I would be lying if I said I have a vision board in my room. I have it in my head.
Okay, no, that's fair. So I'm speaking of being busy, and I want to respect your time and close shortly, but if there's anything you would like to share before we go about your vision for the rest of your life, sort of like the overarching vision for the second half of your life, and don't feel, I don't want to put you on the spot because it might be hard to pick any one thing, but if there's a conceptual thing that would be most important to you above all else, what might that be?
Well, I think it's just what I said before. It's life is uncertain. So not only should you eat dessert first, but you should also keep your options open. So here's the thing. And I just feel that there's so much possibility that it's very hard for me. Like, I know, okay, I started VivaFifty, but VivaFifty could last 10 years until I turn 60, or it could turn into VivaFifty, or it could just evolve, or whatever. Somebody might want to buy it. I don't know.
Right.
So I just know that my vision today for now is to empower women, and again, especially Latinas or mixed heritage women, because there are so many insecurities that come with that, or that we grew up with because we didn't know what we were. Like, I never thought it was, what am I, Spanish, Latina, American? Am I a mixture? Now I know it's an asset, but I grew up thinking it was not. So I want to help my peers really embrace that, and really don't get, depressed because you're getting older. As you said, yes, there are horrible things. There's menopause is sucking the life out of me some days, but there are so many good things that come with getting older, and this knowledge and this way of being in the world that, goodness, I wish I could go back and talk to my younger self and say, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So that my vision really is just, sometimes I do wish that I could disconnect more, and that I could go back to enjoying the moment more, like just when I had nothing. When I had nothing, sometimes, I really would, I would take my kids to the beach all day and say, okay, well, we don't have any money, we don't have it, but we're going to do this. That is what I'm lacking a little more of nowadays. But I also realize that if you want to reach certain goals, you do have to do the footwork.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
And I don't believe in balance, really. So.
No, that's where I am now too. And I realize that there's a lot of things that I want to do with my family and my kids as well that we just don't have time because we're so focused on building our businesses. But one of the things that we do that really, it makes it special for all of us, is I incorporate them as much as possible in our projects, even our business projects. They each have a job relative to our business. And so that then makes it sort of a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps them at the same time they're learning. So
how many kids do you have?
I have 2 kids.
How old are they?
My daughter is actually 20 now, and my son is 18. But they're both still in the home. They're both internationally adopted. My daughter.
Oh my goodness! That's
Yeah, my daughter's adopted from India, and my son is adopted from Russia, and he's native Russian, which means he's Asian. And like the Native American Indians, they have native Russians. And they were homeschooled for most of their schooling. So, my daughter's been running her own marketing business for the past 5 years started as a part of her homeschooling, and now she does that for my companies.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And by the way, that thing about the kids being at home, I only wish my kids will be at home at that age.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Certainly as a parent, from your children is 18 doesn't necessarily, not all 18s are the same.
Right.
There's some kids that at 14, they're more like 20 in their maturity and their determination to get out and do. And there's some kids that at 25, they may just now be coming into themselves, so there really is no, sort of like society that is arbitrarily said at 18, a child is thus, an adult. And that's not always the case. Of course, we know because there are some 50-year-olds who are still children.
Yeah.
All different ages, but we're looking at our, a lot of what we do is sort of a family legacy of family businesses, and while they will go out and do other things in other places in the world, I think we will always have that connection, that there's sort of a family kind of environment of entrepreneurial spirit. We're all aspiring writers like yours. Yeah. Yeah. So, so there's so many connectors that we have that make us really enjoy, that help us to really enjoy each other's company.
That is so interesting, because I think that like-minded people do attract each other. See?
Yeah, that's right.
And just to hear the way you guys, I'm kind of jealous because my kids are younger, but sometimes they want to help me, but then they get bored because they're too young.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it has to be. It's sort of like, it might be writing. It's a tricky thing because it took a while. Like my son is doing his own thing. He, if he could be a warrior in the woods, that's what he would be, even at 18, right? And so he's finding his way. He is from a different culture and different, genetics that are a part of who he is. But at the same time, he's writing. So instead of being a warrior going off to war, he's writing stories about war and soldiers that he creates from his imagination. So it's like, maybe that will be his transmutation from being an actual fighter, warrior, killing people or possibly getting killed to doing it in novels.
That is amazing. That's so interesting.
Yeah, that's hopeful. But anyway, Lorraine, this has been wonderful connecting with you. And I really appreciate and value your time, your work, and the energy and bright spirit that you are in the world.
Thank you. And I would, I would be honored to interview you for VivaFifty. So let's keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do. So this will post in a couple weeks, and I'll keep you posted and let you know.
Okay, so now we're off? Or is this?
No, I'm getting ready to close it now.
So okay. Okay, so I can't say anything bad yet. Okay. No, just kidding. I see that I still look blue, and so people know why. I'm in Florida. The weather has changed, and it's raining like crazy.
Oh, actually, it's been wonderful. As you've been talking throughout the interview, that's been different colors. It's been perfect for your personality. So now it's blue, but it's been gold and light and everything in between. So.
Goodness gracious. Well, thank you. And I really had a really good time doing this.
Thank you. Me too, so much. You're kindred spirit.
Really.